Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today, did the media rob LeBron James of the 2018 MVP award? What are we talking about? Well, earlier this week, LeBron James eclipsed 50,000 career points in the NBA. That's including regular season and postseason. I believe the regular season is around like 42,000 and the postseason's around 8,000, which is kind of crazy that he has that many points in the postseason. But this led to a lot of people in the NBA media reflecting on LeBron James's career, including Brian Windhorst. So, in case you don't know who Brian Windhorst is, he's a guy that you probably know him now from like appearances on First Take or NBA Today on ESPN or Get Up, but he's also a reporter for the NBA, mostly covering LeBron James for his entire career. This is going back to like the early days of Cleveland. He's written multiple books about LeBron James and a lot of his teams. So he's a LeBron guy. But this led Windhorst to going on First Take a few days ago, and he was reflecting on LeBron James's career and specifically 2018, where he says that, like, hey, I voted for James Harden for MVP that year. If I could go back in time and change my vote to LeBron, just thinking back on it and how impressive he was that season, I would have voted for LeBron for MVP, and I regret voting for James Harden. So let's go ahead and let's listen to why Brian Windhorst is saying this and his reasoning for that, and then we will react to it on the other side.
Have me given this, I just want to say I have a few regrets. Okay. One of my regrets is in 2017-18, which was the last year LeBron played in Cleveland, that I didn't vote for LeBron for MVP. And I just gave Harden all those flowers. Harden won the MVP that year, and I voted for him for MVP. And I do regret that vote, because the longer I've thought about it, the more I've realized how great LeBron was in this season. He's 33 years old. The Cavs, Kyrie had been traded, and they were the fourth seed. He played every single game that year, 82 games. He led the league in minutes. Okay, his stats were very good. He had he's had better statistical seasons, but his stats were very good. They go into the playoffs. They go to Game 7 in the first round against Indiana. He had a game winner at the buzzer in that series. They get to the next round where they play the top-seeded Raptors. He destroyed them, blew them up, and hit.
Casey loses his job because of it.
Yes, and hit a game winner in that. And again, I say a game winner. I'm not talking about 7 seconds left. I'm talking about shots at the buzzer. Hit a game winner in that series. And they go play the Celtics without home court advantage. He has a brilliant series and leads them into a win in Boston in Game 7. Go look at how many teams have won in Boston in Game 7 in history. It's just not something that's done.
Yeah.
Then they go into the finals and the famous J.R. Smith game. But LeBron, that Game 1 of the finals is one of the great games of LeBron's career.
51 that game, right?
Yes, and then he goes and he punches the. He's so angry about the way the game ends. He punches the chalkboard and cracks a bone in his finger, and his numbers take a dip after that. And people can say whatever they want about that, but that season I have an incredible amount of respect for it. I'm not even necessarily arguing it's the best ever.
Yeah,
it's underrated. So since this window was opened, I wanted just to shine a little light on that.
How about the season?
All right, guys. I'm going to preface my comments on this MVP award and just the rest of this video by saying this. I'm a LeBron James fan. He's my favorite basketball player of all time. If you don't believe me, I have a bobblehead of LeBron James. We'll just go ahead and leave that here for the rest of the show. And I even have a LeBron James t-shirt jersey. I'm a LeBron James fan. He's my favorite player of all time. But he did not deserve to win the MVP in 2018. James Harden deserved to win the MVP, and that's why he won the MVP. Let's just go over some of the numbers. So LeBron that year, again, very impressive, averaged 27.5 points, 9 assists, and 8.6 rebounds per game. Harden led the NBA in scoring with 30.4 points per game. He had averaged 8.8 assists per game and had 5.4 rebounds per game. The Rockets were 65-17 that year, led the NBA in wins, best record in the NBA. The Cavaliers that year were 50-32 that season. And you might say, hey, well, LeBron, he led a team, to the 4th seed with that crappy roster around it. We got to give LeBron his flowers for that. I think people forget how crazy of a season that was for the Cavaliers. I was going through it before I started recording here. They had a stretch where they lost 3. They had a 12-game stretch where they lost 9 out of those 12 games. They had a 15-game stretch where they lost 11 out of those games. And it was like they kind of started off the season well. Then basically through mid-December to throughout all of January, that team was an absolute dumpster fire. It was an absolute mess. And then at the trade deadline that year, they traded away half of their team. They traded away half their team. They traded away Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, Isaiah Thomas, Iman Shumpert, Channing Frye, and Dwayne Wade at the trade deadline. And coming back, they received Jordan Clarkson, Rodney Hood, Larry Nance Jr., and George Hill. I'm sorry, if you have to trade away half your team in the middle of the season to save the season, you do not deserve to win the MVP that year, and I'm okay with that. And even if you go through Wendy's arguments there, his arguments were, they weren't even good arguments. Now, I'm not sure if he was like preparing to do like a debate about that or anything like that. He played all 82 games was an argument. Okay, cool, fun. Led the NBA in minutes, which kind of happens if you're playing all 82 games. His stats were good. We just went over his stats. They were good. But half of his argument was the playoff run. And that's just not how we decide MVPs. We decide it in the regular season. That's how we decide MVPs. Now, if you want to do a retrospective and be like, hey, we should actually decide the MVP after all of the games have been played, not just the regular season. If you want to have that discussion, go ahead, have that discussion. But with how the MVP is decided, LeBron didn't deserve to win it that year. James Harden led the NBA in scoring, was on the best team in the NBA. And if it wasn't for Chris Paul getting hurt, his team might have won the finals that year. And that's not to take away from how amazing LeBron was that year. That Indiana series was amazing. He ended the DeMar DeRozan's Toronto Raptors. He knocked down the Boston Celtics in a game 7 where he had to like play really well in the fourth quarter. I think people forget how close that game 7 actually was. He played probably one of the greatest games of all time in the playoffs that year, but he did not deserve to win MVP in 2018. Now that does beg the question though, did we get the proper number of MVPs from LeBron? Because he has 4. And there is, I think it's only 3 times. Maybe there's another time that I'm not remembering, but I think it's only 3 times that he finished second for the MVP award. It was that year we just talked about. It was 2011, the Derrick Rose year, when Derrick Rose won MVP. And then it was the 2020 year. And I want to talk about the 2020 year and kind of what's happened since that year with LeBron and the Lakers for the rest of this video. So basically, if you go back to that year, LeBron James, that's the year that they acquire Anthony Davis, and they have this really good, fun team. They have the best defense in the NBA. And LeBron basically turned into a point guard that year. He led the NBA in assists. He averaged, I think it was 25, or I have it written down here, 25, 10, and 8. And the Lakers they didn't have the best record in the league, but I think they had the second best record in the NBA that year. And if you remember, right before the world shut down and the NBA shut down with COVID, there was a weekend where the Lakers played the Clippers, who, if you do not remember that season, that was the year of Kawhi. That was the year of the Clippers coming to take LA away from the Lakers. And they played the Clippers on I think they played the Clippers on a Sunday, and then they played the Bucks on a Friday, if my memory is correct. And that was basically the 2 biggest contenders, you would say, for the Lakers that year. And LeBron in back-to-back games outplayed Giannis and then outplayed Kawhi Leonard in back-to-back games. And for that whole season, it looked like Giannis was a runaway for the MVP. And then after that weekend, LeBron basically evened up the MVP race, where it was like, hey, LeBron could actually win this thing. He has a really good shot. And then on top of that, Giannis gets hurt. Giannis gets hurt where he was going to be out for like a month, if not the entire rest of the regular season that year. So if we live in an alternate universe where COVID just doesn't happen and they play out the rest of the regular season like it's a regular NBA season, LeBron wins MVP that year. He wins MVP that year. He gets his 5th MVP. The Lakers probably, I still think, you might think the bubble title is BS or whatever. I think they still go on and they win the NBA championship. And that kind of leads me to this conclusion and this theory here. Now, kind of stick with me here. I think that the bubble title for LeBron was the worst thing that happened to his career. And I think it's cost him a title. I'll explain. Stay with me. So let's go back in time. 2020 bubble happens. They end up winning the championship. When the Lakers won the championship that year over the Miami Heat, it was in October. I think it was even late October. The NBA at that time did not know when the next season was going to start. They didn't know. Then a few weeks later, they decide, hey, we're going to start the next season on Christmas Day, leading the Heat and the Lakers basically only like 4-6 weeks to train and get ready for the next season. 2 weeks after, or a week after, they had just completed the last season and just played an NBA championship. Meanwhile, you had all the teams that didn't go to the bubble, or stars that didn't go to the bubble that hadn't been playing since March. You had other people that hadn't been playing since August. This led the Lakers and, a lot of the other teams that, went really far and deep into that bubble to have really bad seasons the next year. I think that was the year that the Celtics got swept by the Nets. The Heat, I don't think, went far in the playoffs that year. And the Lakers that year, the Nuggets didn't go that far either. The Lakers that year, I think people forget this series. That year, Anthony Davis and LeBron missed significant time, and they fall all the way down to the standings where they're the 7th seed. They win a play-in game to play the Phoenix Suns in the first round of the playoffs. People forget that series. The Lakers were up 2-1 in that series, and it looked like in Game 4, in the middle of the second quarter, the Lakers are up by like 20-something. And it looks like, oh my God, the Lakers, they're going to go on a playoff run again. It doesn't matter what seed they are. The poor Phoenix Suns, poor Chris Paul. The Lakers are going to win this game, go up 3-1, and they're going to finish off the series in either 5 or 6 games. Well, what happens in that game, Game 4, guys? Anthony Davis, middle of the second quarter, gets hurt. He's out for the rest of the series. Phoenix comes back and wins, and they win the series in 6. Guys, I think if Anthony Davis doesn't get hurt that year, if you're talking about just a regular year where none of that stuff happens, none of the stuff with the bubble happens, I think the Lakers have a really good shot of repeating that year. But what does that lead the Lakers to do? Do the Lakers look at it rationally and say, hey, we barely had any time to prepare for the season. Let's just call this a mulligan, and let's come back and let's bring back the same squad next year and let's run it back. That's not what they decided to do. And this move right here that they did in the summer of 2021 cost LeBron a title. I think it cost him a title. And that move was trading KCP, Kyle Kuzma for Russell Westbrook. But on top of that, they also could have kept Alex Caruso, but decided to keep Talon Horton-Tucker over Alex Caruso because they basically made the same amount of money, and they kept THT. They let Caruso go. I think if they just keep Caruso and they keep KCP and they keep Kyle Kuzma, I think, again, health is obviously an uncontrollable factor, but if they're healthy in that 2022 playoffs, I think they win it that year. Because that was the year that the Warriors won. You look through the rest of the West that year, you had the Warriors, you had the Suns, who completely choked in the second round against the Mavericks. You had the Mavericks, who were really young. You had the Grizzlies that are really young. You had the Nuggets, who were all banged up. I believe Murray and Michael Porter Jr. both missed that entire season. And then the East, you had the young Celtics. You obviously had the Miami Heat, but I mean, the Celtics ended up getting out of that. I think that Lakers team would have beaten that Celtics team. So that Russell Westbrook trade obviously killed that 22 season. I think it killed and I think it also killed the next 2 seasons after that. I think it killed the 23 season and the 24 season, where basically they were in a hole in that 23 season trying to get out of that Westbrook contract. They finally do, and they kind of get a bunch of pieces that not really many people wanted. And then last year, they're kind of stuck with those pieces again. And I think you're talking about 21, 22, 23, 24, where like those are years that if they just kind of stick with the same strategies they did in 2020, I think they have a much better chance of trying to win the title than they did the way it planned out. And guys, people forget the plan of what LeBron did when he went to LA, because this was financial ramifications for him too. People forget, goes to LA. He's coming off of 8 straight finals appearances, and it's finally like, oh, wait, LeBron, he's going to go out there. He's going to play hard. He's going to be an awesome basketball player, but he's not necessarily saying his first year in LA, hey, move heaven and earth and the sun and get me players that can compete for an NBA championship right now. Now, he obviously gets hurt that year too, but that year's kind of a wash. And then that summer, LeBron films Space Jam 2, and then they trade for Anthony Davis. And then you guys obviously know what happens after that. We just went over all that stuff that happened in that season. If COVID didn't happen, guys, and the world didn't shut down, LeBron would have won the NBA Finals that year in LA, won his 4th ring, would have won his 5th MVP, Finals MVP, and then would have had Space Jam 2 coming out that summer. Now, I don't know if he would have had any points or anything on that movie, but that movie would have made a lot more money than it did of it getting released. It's still kind of in the haze of COVID and with the Lakers not being relevant at all, which I think got released in 21 or 22, but it was supposed to be 2020. So again, multiple different reasons why that bubble title was the worst thing that happened. Again, some of it's uncontrollable. Like, you can't control a global pandemic breaking out in the middle of a basketball season. But again, here's the silver lining, though. He's got a chance to do it now. He's got a chance to go for ring number 5 right now with Luka. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. They've won 8 straight as of this recording. He's got a chance. He's still got a chance, guys, to get ring 5, and then depending on how many years later, potentially ring 6, which is absolutely astonishing. This is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll get out of here. Coincidentally, LeBron and Stephen A have had this like big explosion of beef that's basically broken out over the last like 24 hours or whatever of this recording. We're recording this Friday evening, by the way. I remember Stephen A. Smith said this one time, and I've never forgotten it. It was on First Take, and this is before he kind of turned into like a pro LeBron hater kind of a guy. And I think he said it like talking about Skip Bayless, or talking with Skip Bayless. That's how long ago it was. And he said the line that has stuck with me for a long time. He said, hey, we got to appreciate LeBron right now, what he's doing right now, because we're going to miss him when he's gone. We will miss LeBron James when he is gone and not playing basketball anymore for hundreds of reasons. But let's sit back. Let's not every time he does something compare it to Michael Jordan or all that stuff, or, dissect it in 100 million ways. Let's just sit back and let's enjoy what he's doing, and even to another degree of what Steph Curry's doing at his age, because it looks like the Warriors might be able to go on a title run this year too. Let's just sit back. Let's appreciate these great players while they're being great. Let's acknowledge their greatness, and let's have fun, because we're not going to have that much years left of these guys. We just don't have that many left, and I'm just happy to see both of them. Just they're the twilights of their career still competing for championships. It's absolutely remarkable. LeBron James, my favorite player of all time. The only bad thing about being a LeBron guy, though, is that for that really fun Warriors stretch, you just didn't get to root for Steph Curry. That's the thing that sucks the most about that. In like mostly 15, 16, you just didn't get to root for Curry. I mean, I was able to root for him in the 2020s when it wasn't head to head every year, and it's just 1A, 1B every single year. But that's the worst thing about it, because he's absolutely fun to watch, and he's absolutely amazing in his own right. All right, I've been talking too long here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you got this far in the video, you might as well just subscribe. Just do it. Helps us out so much. Helps us get pushed down the algorithm. It's the number one way you can help support this show, and it costs you absolutely $0. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. That'll let me know that I should do more videos like this. Leave a comment what you think about the 2018 MVP, what you think about my Lakers theory that probably took up 50% of this video, the LeBron theory that took up 50% of this video. We'll love to hear you guys' thoughts and feedback on that. And again, feel free to check out other videos on this channel, and tell your friends. Thank you for watching.